Welcome to West Coast Women Rising. I'm Judge Flizanes, your host, and I have with me today Nikki. Welcome to the show, Nikki.
Hey JJ, thanks for having me.
So you're a member of Ventura County Businesswomen. I know that we have not yet met in person, and but I'm very excited to have this conversation. There are a lot of people out there who are either business owners or thinking about starting a business or looking for trusted referrals in many different areas of life and business, and might be using this podcast to vet some of those people. So let's start with, I know that you're a psychotherapist and you specialize in psychotherapy, eating disorders. You put supervision. What does that mean?
I'm a supervisor for associate marriage and family therapists. So when they're getting their hours towards licensure, they work underneath someone who's already licensed in order to get their hours. And that's primarily what I enjoy doing is supervising newer associate therapists.
Well, wonderful. Okay, great. So, what got you interested? Did you always want to be a psychotherapist, or did this somehow happen by divine intervention?
Actually, no. My undergraduate degree is in studio art. So I got my bachelor's in art, and I studied ceramics and photography. I was a wedding photographer and did a lot of odd jobs in my early 20s. And my parents, thankfully, were like, "What are you going to do with this degree?" So uh, I thought about it for a while, and I realized I love art and I love people. And so I started getting interested in art therapy. And when I started looking down that path, I realized that it actually would probably be best if I just went the direct psychotherapy route instead of already going into a specialization. So then I could like feel out where I wanted to go with being a therapist. And I applied to graduate school and got in. And it just so happened that I very naturally inclined as a therapist because of my ease with talking to people and that I'm a very curious person. So it fit me really well. And I think I still do use a lot of art in therapy. I'm very creative with coming up with different interventions or different things that clients can do to bring more thoughts or modalities into the therapy room.
So, when did you start your practice? Did you work for someone first, or did you just come out of grad school and open a practice?
No, no, I wish that would be nice, but I got my hours. So you have to get 3,000 hours to get your license, and I got my hours primarily from an addiction treatment center called the Claire Foundation that I worked at in Santa Monica, and another treatment center in Torrance that was addiction for adolescents. And I worked at both of those sites, focusing in addiction treatment for a while. And then eventually, a friend of mine was like, "Well, do you want to transition into working with eating disorders as a specialization?" And I don't have a background in eating disorders at all. I'd really only done addiction. And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Do you think I can do it?" And she was like, "Well, you like food and you're normal about body image and that kind of stuff. So I think you would enjoy it." And I interviewed at an eating disorder treatment center, and that is called Montanito, which is actually close to out here in Agoura Hills. And I worked at Montanito for the next 8 years in their residential PHP and IOP. And then during that time that I was working there, I started opening my practice on the side. Once I got licensed in 2015, started opening my practice on the side, seeing clients in the evenings and on the weekends. And from 2015 on, yeah, I've just been building and growing and changing things and learning along the way.
So, you've been in practice for yourself for 10 years.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Welcome. So far, a lot of people are sort of new. There's a span of like I went to the Ventura County business meeting yesterday at the
Mhm.
pavilion, and it's a span of like people that are like brand new or 1 or 2 years in, or people like I've been in business for 21 years. So it's like we have, the 10 plus years, and there's not as many in the 10 plus
Yeah.
years as there are in the 1 to 5.
Yeah, and I love getting the experience from everyone because the business world has changed so much over this time. And a lot of when I first started, with marketing and networking, I would do like in person. I'd go to all these different networking events and coffee meetups. And now a lot more of what I do is online on Facebook and social media. And it's really transitioned a lot.
So do you get clients from online referrals from seeing social media posts?
Yeah, yeah. I go on Facebook, and that's one of the groups I found on there was Ventura County Businesswomen, but there are a variety of groups that you can join, especially as a therapist. And people are constantly posting referrals for clients. So it's one of the best resources these days for finding clients.
Wow, that's cool. Because it's insurance based, do you bill through insurance?
I do actually. I take Cigna and Aetna. Looking to get paneled with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield within the next end of the half of this year. Um, but I do take insurance. We also take cash pay and slide our rates if people need help in that way. I work with, like I said, a lot of associates in my practice. So I've had as many as 3 to 4 associates working under me. And because they're working towards their licensure, their rates are usually a little bit lower, and they're, wanting to learn and take on a lot of clients. So I love being able to have that aspect of my practice, especially now that I'm a mom. I see only so many clients myself. I used to see, a caseload of 30 clients, and now that I have a 4-year-old, I try to limit myself to like more of a 15 client week. But then my associates can take on plenty of clients, and I supervise them, and it's a good way for me to stay sharp and in the business, but also not having to push myself like with that grind of seeing 30 clients a week, which can be a lot.
So in a way, that's sort of a built-in way to scale your practice, isn't it?
Mhm.
To have other associates underneath you. Do you make money when they're working?
Yes.
Also?
Yeah, so they're W-2 employees, so they make a portion of that hourly rate that the client pays, and then the rest goes towards the practice, which covers my supervision and covers them being able to utilize the office and our electronic health record, helping them with marketing and connections. So I make part of it, and so a lot of it goes back to the practice.
Well, of course, but it's not just a referral where you're not collecting. I mean, because if you go from a 40 or 30 client week to a 15 client week, if you we've talked about scaling on this show because
Hmm.
a lot of people don't, especially because when you're in a practice where it's based on you and your time and your knowledge and your coaching, so to speak, or your therapy, we don't make money when we're not working. And so looking at how do I scale a practice or a business, even when it's in the area of something that might seemingly not be scalable. So for you, it's scalable because you have sort of this constant flow of associates that need to get their hours. And then you can also make money off of their sessions also, which is great because then everybody wins. They get paid, you get paid, client gets help, and everybody wins. It's a great way. At the meeting this week, Natalie ran the event and she gave us a practice and it was really fun. And she said, okay, 10x, if you had to 10x your business, what would it look like? And I have a hard time holding back. I'm very respectful of it's not my turn to talk, but she kind of quickly told everybody, don't think of like more work, more burden, more tasks.
Hmm.
But she didn't lead in, and I want to say more delegation, more delegation. Like when you have the resources, then you can delegate, and then that's how you can scale it properly, where you continue to make more, but you can work less because you have other people who also are contributing to the business. In the associates that you get, are they all in similar specialties that you kind of set up that you only want specialties in the same things that you're doing, like eating disorders and things like that?
Yeah, so I specialize in eating disorders primarily, as well as anxiety and trauma. I'm EMDR trained, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a type of trauma therapy. And I also recently I started getting more and more interested in working with couples, especially people who are have young children and are working through parenting together, whether the parents are together or separated, and trying to work through some of that. So that's like a niche I'm entering into. That being said, with my associates, I try to find people that are interested in eating disorders at the very least, because I do get a lot of referrals in that arena since it's been my specialty for about a decade. But historically, I've had associates that specialize in all different areas and have their own niches, which is really cool to supervise because then I never get bored, right? There's always new things to learn about, And I sometimes, I'll tell a supervisee, I don't know every answer right off the bat, but I will do my best to research and find things out. And I think that's one of the reasons I love being a therapist is 'cause, like it never gets boring or old. Like there's always new things that you can learn in different areas you can work in.
So I know you don't know what I do, but I do that in a non-therapy way. So I'm an empowerment
Uh-huh.
strategist, but I've created systems and ways. I've created something called a core wound map. I think it's imperative that anybody going through therapy have this done before you get into therapy because it allows you to get
Mhm.
really focused, really clear. Because I've had some, not great therapists. I don't really believe in talk therapy, but I hear that you're not just doing traditional talk therapy. I don't think that's very effective, but having tools like EMDR or tapping or hypnosis or cognitive behavioral therapy, things that create
Yeah.
neuroplasticity so the brain can change. Because without action, without changing the story, without doing something different, without stretching it out of your comfort zone, really people just repeat the same stories and stay stuck in a victim mentality most of the time. So
Mm.
what I'm curious about with the people who are coming to you, not the clients, but the therapists who have a specialty. So let's say you have, however many associates that also specialize in eating disorders. Are you also training them? Are you, I mean, you're supervising, but does that mean you're also
Mhm.
educating them or teaching them things that you've learned?
Yeah, so I do a lot of education on eating disorders with my supervisees. I have like a couple different presentations that I give to help people to understand, if you're a supervisee or an associate and you don't ever work in an eating disorder treatment center, it's hard to get this level of education and like in such a specific niche. So yeah, I have a couple of presentations I put together so that they can understand it from a more specific lens. And
Well, no, because then your role becomes sort of educator as well as therapist, right? So business owner, facilitator, educator. So the role is more complex, it sounds like, than just therapist.
yeah, and one of the things I tell associates when they work in my practice specifically, which might seem different than maybe some other group practices, is that I consider my practice more of a training site. So when I tell them like you're going to work in this practice, it's not that I'm just feeding them clients and they see the client, they collect the hour, and then go on their way. I want them to understand from like the ground up how to build a practice because I'm assuming that's something that they want to do. So I'm introducing them to how to advertise, how to market, how to do your own billing, your scheduling, what insurance looks like if you want to be on those kind of panels. So it's more of like I'm training you to have your own practice if that's what you want to do. And throughout my time doing this, some therapists have come through my practice and they're like, whoa, this is a lot of extra work. I think I just want to work at a treatment site or at a group practice where they're feeding you clients and you're not necessarily also a business person. And then there are others that they just love they love the hustle and like owning something that's really your own. So it's not just that you're a therapist seeing clients, but that you're also a business person and there's like a whole nother aspect to learning all about that you have to really have an interest in. So that's I look for go-getters. I look for people that want to be like a self-starter and figure out how to build a business from the ground up, and I enjoy helping people to learn how to do that.
Do you charge for that, or is that just included in
No,
their
it's a
hours?
part of being one of my supervisees is just learning all of that through being in my practice.
Is that just something that you add to it, or is that because that doesn't sound like it's something that's required?
No, that's just something I like to do.
Okay, well, just know you have a future as a coach for
Yeah,
therapists
I've heard
also
that.
because, well, you're doing it, you're just doing it for free. And I think you're maybe shortchanging the fact that you could have a whole side business of also people that want to learn from you because you're right, this is a road less traveled. It isn't necessarily the easiest thing. What got you inspired and how did you learn how to run a business?
When I was an associate myself and I was getting my hours, I actually interned in a private practice. And I found this private practice supervisor and she was so wonderful. And she was a very strong businesswoman. And I think she must have had a background in business, at least having some classes from college in it before she became a therapist. But she was really knowledgeable in that. And she taught me a lot of the things about how to find your ideal client, and like really thinking from the perspective of like, if you, let's say you want to work with 14-year-olds with eating disorders, like where are you going to go to market and advertise? Are you going to be in moms groups? Are you going to go to the school systems? And her mentality around that, I'd never thought about that before, not as an artist and not as a therapist. They don't teach that in your graduate degree either. And so I really admired her and, and learned a lot from that experience working under her. And after I worked for her, I took a long break and worked in treatment programs before I eventually decided to go back into private practice.
Did you just observe at the treatment programs sort of how to run a business, or was there more education that you decided to take after you started your own business?
In the treatment programs or in the treatment centers, it's not really business related. I mean, it is probably the higher up you are in the system, but when you're just a therapist working in the treatment centers, it's very like, go in, make sure you're taking care of your clients,
Right,
and
but I
they
mean as an observer, like if I'm in a treatment center and I'm observing how they get their clients, how they get their,
mm,
like, did you notice any of that? Because with your education from your supervisor about how to run a business and then having a stint where you weren't focused on building a business, I was asking, did you observe kind of the treatment center as a business model? And if you didn't, then
uh,
what, was there anything after that treatment center that kind of got you back into, okay, how do I market myself? Or did you already know that going in?
I think I didn't know that much about how the treatment center um, gathered clients, or the business portion of those things, until I was in a higher level position. So I worked my way up to assistant clinical director at the treatment center. And once I was there, that's when I got more of a glimpse as to like the inner workings of how treatment centers make money and get clients. And there's a lot that goes into that, because there's a lot of insurance, and the amount that people are paying for treatment programs is a lot higher than what you do for private practice. But what I learned from that is every single treatment program, whether it's eating disorders, addiction, behavioral issues, they all have um, a marketing person, somebody that goes out into the world and meets people like me. And so that's one of the things I tell my associates, and I would tell any therapist, like if you want to make good connections, like figure out who their outreach person is or their marketing person is for treatment centers, and grab a coffee with them, because they're the ones that are trying to get clients into their treatment programs and also feeding people out.
Yeah, I think it's in like in one way it's like joint ventures or power partners, like who, there's someone who has this need and I have this as a solution, and so we need to meet, right? And it's looking at sort of the upline of that, like who feeds you and then who do you feed? Because if we look around to how people get to you, and I'm guessing, so you've mentioned social media and you've mentioned that there are like groups. So I'm just curious, are you in Facebook groups that are about eating disorders and you're one of the therapists and then you go in and answer questions, or are you making content and posting videos?
Yeah, so on the Facebook groups, I'm primarily in therapist groups. So there'll be like eating disorder therapists of West Los Angeles, and I'll join that group. There are other groups that are geared for people in recovery, so ED support groups or recovery groups. And not that therapists are not welcome to join those groups, but I think it's really, those are meant for the people that are specifically in recovery and trying to get support from their peers. So it's rare that I would join one of those groups and post in there. It's easier to get the referrals from other clinicians than to try to market yourself or advertise within a group like that. And what was your follow-up question about?
So I'm trying to get, because this is good information for anybody who has, whether they're a therapist or they have whatever their specialty is, because there are groups on Facebook that you can get into. And for me, when I was a personal trainer, I didn't want to go into groups and answer questions for free all day. I felt like that
Sure.
wasn't, but it sounds like because and that's what some people do. They find, whether it be Facebook or a different platform, they look for the people who need what they offer, and they go in and they make a relationship, and then they spend time in there, and then they eventually move them into whatever, it's a free offer or have a consultation or something. And I understand that. To me, that's like that feels like it's going to take so long to
Mm.
get that message out there. But what I'm hearing is that you're in a Facebook group of other therapists, so you're getting referrals from other therapists.
Typically, and the one other thing, so I said, I would feel odd or out of place joining a recovery group and marketing myself in that group. However, I am in a lot of moms groups, which is a part of my life. So I'll be, Moms of Conejo Valley is a huge group, and I'm in that group to get a lot of information about different things I might need for my son. But it's also a great place to be able to use it for your business. And thankfully, a lot of moms also appreciate that. I appreciate when they post things about their businesses. And then I can learn like who in the area like cleans car seats. I need to know.
Perfect. Okay, well that feels a lot more authentic or natural or easy because you're also getting as much as you're giving. So I'm guessing you're making content, or are you answering questions, or are you doing sort of little promos?
It's a little bit of both. So I think there's a lot of people that post, that they need help or need support, and I'll respond to that in a, very like, hey, I'm here if you need a therapist or need someone to talk to kind of way. But there's also I have a social media intern, which is one of the smartest things you can do if you don't love managing your own social media. Um, and she creates beautiful Canva posts for me, and she has a background in therapy as well. So she's studying to become a therapist. So she knows a lot of like what would be good to post, like 5 things you can do for mindfulness today, or today is, Autism Awareness Week, or whatever the thing is. So she'll make different beautiful posts for my Instagram, and we put those on the Facebook as well. Because I think, like I said earlier, if you don't have an online presence, like it's hard to really exist in this day and age. And I'm not like, I don't want to be like a TikTok famous therapist or anything like that, but I want people to know that like I have information, I put it online, and you can also reach out to me if you want.
Which group do you love working with the most?
Mm, on Facebook.
No, clients. Is it the eating
Hmm.
disorder specialty? Or I've heard you said you're starting to do couples therapy.
Yes, I always love working with eating disorders. And I think when people hear eating disorders, that they think very specifically of restrictive anorexia, bulimia, but most of the people that I meet with are on an eating disorder spectrum. And that's because I work in outpatient, right? So not everybody is in a severe state where they're needing to get treatment level care. But a lot of people struggle with body image issues and self-esteem, and just things that we all really feel about ourselves. And so that's the niche. That's the reason I love working with eating disorders, is because I love talking to people about their identity and figuring out who we are outside of just our body. Who is it that we want to be without it just being this external person.
I have a background for 25 years as a personal trainer. And throughout that, found myself just questioning motivation. Why does somebody interpret the way they do? What's their story? How do they see the world? Which led me to what I'm doing now, along with my marriage, which I tried to save by learning everything I could possibly learn and doing everything I possibly could do, which it wasn't meant to be saved because I needed to learn what I needed to learn from with a very strong intention and motivation because I wouldn't have done what I did. I wouldn't have learned all that I've learned to do that any other way. I had to really care about it. But now I'm helping others also because of what I learned. And now I can apply it to situations where it can actually do what it's supposed to do for other people. And so we were talking about eating disorders, as I kind of cut off that part of me. Like, so you said you had the artist part of you, and I'm wondering, I want to know where you add that potentially back into some of the work that you're doing, whether it be online or in person. I had had a program called 6 Week Beachbody, like 2007 or 2009, so many years ago, with a friend, and she was a hypnotherapist. So we did EFT, we did meditations, we did hypnosis, as well as I did all the physical stuff and mindset when it comes to relationship to your body. And there was a piece in it called Date Your Body, and I always loved that piece. And I thought one day I'm going to use that. One day I'm going to use that. So that was like 2007, 8, 9. Well, last year, so 2024, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I mean, I have hours. I have 20 years of videos of correct form for exercise and cooking videos and podcasts about everything from hormones and wellness, everything under that spectrum, vitamins and homeopathy and flower essences and all kinds of things. And so I launched Date Your Body last year, which felt finally like, oh, I'm blending the two worlds together because now we're going to do
Hmm.
all of it. We're going to address the physical body and the relationship with the body. And now, even though I have other programs, I feel like, okay, this is a good place for people to start. It's sort of the entry level place of I've done the dieting for my whole life. And none of my people are anorexic or bulimic or have eating
Hmm.
disorders necessarily, other than addiction to emotional eating, which we all have to some degree,
Uh-huh.
right? As a coping mechanism for not dealing with our emotions. But where in your life, so for me, like it came last year where I was like, oh God, I get to finally combine the worlds where they didn't seem to fit. I mean, they did in my mind, but now how do I put them together? Because I don't want to, I mean, I was named best personal trainer in Los Angeles for 2007 by Elite Traveler magazine. I have a lot of PR and press and magazines. I didn't want to just cut it off and be like, I'm done. I'm like, I have all this
Hmm.
information. There has to be a way to blend it to utilize it in what I'm doing now. So for you with your art, where do you
Mm.
get to add that in with what kinds of clients or patients? Is it only in person or can you do things on Zoom with art therapy?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that you can do with art and being creative. I am, I have been virtual since 2020, but I did just open up an office in Thousand Oaks. So that's amazing and will give a lot more space to doing creative things in person again. Um, I really love having people do collage, which you can do online. Like we can sit here on a call just like you and I are and be cutting things out of magazines or drawing. And sometimes just having something to do with your hands while your mind is working on difficult topics can be really helpful. Um, and I think that as far as art goes, it's not something that I use all the time, but I do think part of the reason I'm moving more towards couples work and working with new parents is because that's the area that my life is in right now, and so I resonate a lot with that. As far as like being an early new mom and a person and navigating a relationship, so all of that is really it's fun to help people that are going through similar things to you. And not that I'm an expert in any way on having a great marriage or being a perfect mom, but I feel like when you're in it and somebody else is also working on that, it can be a really great safe space to talk through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we have zones of genius and dharmas that will never need a degree because
Hmm.
you live it. And there's a part of living that won't resonate with everybody and it won't be right for everybody, but it'll be right for the right people of whoever that is, right? That's why there's so many therapists, there's so many coaches. There's so like, it's not about that the market is saturated. It's about the unique gifts that you bring and that everyone else brings. And so listening to this, if someone's listening to this, they've probably already heard, okay, she's virtual. I don't have to be in Southern California. I know someone that has an eating disorder and she sounds really nice and I feel really good about referring her to someone. So I'm going to send this episode to them. Like that's the
I
value of,
hope so. That sounds great.
right. Well, I mean, that's, Tawny, and those of you that are listening to the show, you might get sick of this story. I'm not going to tell it for many more times, but it was at a meeting where she was talking about the Elevate series, which is the written version. It's like a bio and a story. And I'm a person who I don't read blogs. I had one back in the day. It was painful. I do write books, but I'm more auditory and I'm more visual. And I'm more auditory than visual. And so podcasts, I've been podcasting for 10 years, almost it'll be 11 in September. So, wow, it'll be
Hmm.
11 in September. So for me, this is the right
So cool.
medium. And I thought, I'm not going to read those. To me, I thought, oh, that's too bad for me and for them. I'm not going to read anybody's story because I'm not going to go to the website and sit and read 200 essays, but I would listen to 200 podcasts over the course of time that I
Hmm.
would then feel, right? It's the resonance of feeling the connection versus just reading something because there's no energy on a page. There's no energy in words without knowing. I mean, there is energy, but there's not the same energy that someone gets to know you. Podcasting is you're in their ear. You're right. You're in their ear. Like there's nothing more intimate than them feeling the frequency coming off of you and the feelings and the heart and whether, and the inspiration if they connect with you. So if you're listening to this and this applies to you or anybody else in terms of the work that Nikki does, or even in terms of like the fact that she's a therapist who's been scaling her business. Maybe
Mm.
you've got some ideas from that, because again, we're here to serve sort of the self growth as well as the business side of West Coast Women Rising, people in BCBW and beyond, and wanting to make an impact globally, actually. So, and Nikki can definitely help you because she's on Zoom. And if she can't help you, she's got other staff that could possibly step in. So it's not going to be a schedule issue at this point. So, with that in mind, of the people that are listening, which I'm going to guess are mostly going to be women who are looking to either start a business, grow a business, or find what's right for them and be inspired or look for vetted referrals, what would you say about either the therapy world and what it is that you do and can offer, and having and starting and growing a business?
I think that the best thing I can say to any, as you said, we're mostly talking to women here, but that I could say to anyone is when you make connections, have them be genuine and try not to think too much about the business aspect. I think when I set up coffee with someone I meet online and I go spend time with them in person, I don't end up spending that much time during the coffee talking about like, oh, I specialize in this. Oh, I have, credentials in that. I really just talk about myself or I ask them questions about their life and honestly usually end up talking about my son or my dog. And I think when you make those genuine connections with people, that's when you get the best referrals because that person they'll know someone that needs a therapist, for instance, and they'll be like, I think you would really like Nikki. And it doesn't actually matter like how many things I specialize in. If the person or the client likes you, no matter what business, model you're in, that's when you'll have the most success. So I think being authentic and making those connections just because you enjoy meeting people, as opposed to thinking every meeting is going to be like a referral source, is how I feel like I've built my practice easily off of that. Because I like talking to people. And that's why I signed up to do this with you, because I like talking to people.
Perfect. Are you an Aquarius by chance?
I'm a Leo. I just had my birthday.
And do you know your moon?
Think it might be, I'm not sure. I'm going to say Aries, but I don't know if that's right.
Do you know your rising? I'm just trying to find. So Leo,
No.
very Leo, to have, to want to talk with people. Aquarians are chatters too, have a lot of words, but I was just curious if you knew it's not a prerequisite, obviously. But
No, I'll
astrology is
have to look it up. I know it, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
nice.
I
Yeah.
always feel very connected to my sun sign. I'm like, I'm a Leo, roar.
Well, moon signs how you deal with your emotions. So the moon,
Fair.
it affects how we internalize or not internalize, how we process emotions. So to me, while the sun sign is important, the moon sign is more important because that gives me
Mm,
understanding of somebody's potential tendencies. Obviously, not always. It's not that cut and dry. It's just one of the many different templates we can use to sort of understand or unpack the way people interpret the world and the stories they make up and the way that we see things. Well, I hope that anyone who's listening to the show is inspired both in the business and personally to share this episode with anyone that might need it and to also heed the advice of, for me, when I joined BCBW, I've made 100% of my living off my podcast for the last 7 years. So I started to go to BCBW because I moved to Ojai 4 years ago, almost 4.5 years ago. And I thought, I just want to like meet some entrepreneurial women. I want to have conversations, not necessarily about business, but I want to talk with women who have a business, who understand the stresses of having a business and who have dreams and goals and are go-getters. I'm definitely about like the people who take action and the go-getters. And I had no financial like expectation because for me in the podcast world, people build a know, like, and trust by listening to my show, and then I'll just get the call. They'll sign up for something, or they'll be like, okay, I'm ready to sign up because they've been listening for some people, it's a couple episodes, but for the most people, it's like a year or 2 years or 6 years that people have been listening. So they build that trust that they already feel safe and they know what they're getting into. But when I went to VCBW, I did what you said. I thought, you know what? I'm not going to overthink this. I have no expectations, literally, except to find people that I resonate with, that I like.
mm,
And I just sort of scanned the room and I thought, who do I like want to go see? Like, where does my body pull me? And so I started having coffee dates with people. I'm like, let's have coffee. Let's have coffee. Because I felt like, oh, there's a resonance there. And you
mhm,
seem like someone I'd like to talk to. And there's no agenda, but we have found connections and collaborations. Obviously, this podcast is a collaboration with Tawney because I thought, well,
mhm.
these women need a voice outside of just written, like a written, and there are people all over the world that could benefit from the services that we all provide. So why not put it out there in a much bigger way? And here we are. So thank you, Nikki, for being a part of the show. And let's see, it's your website is nikkiNaryTherapy.com. You can check everything out in the
Yes.
show notes. The links will be in the show notes. Is there any other link or any other information you want them to know?
I have an Instagram. It's the same, Nikki_Nary_therapy.
Beautiful. So her Instagram and her website plus her bio will be in the show notes. So just check below. If you're on the video, it's below. If you're on the podcast, you got to like open it up so that it shows you the show notes. And thank you, Nikki, for being a part of the VCBW
Thank you. This has
West
been so
Coast
fun.
Women Rising launch. We appreciate you participating.
I appreciate it, and I'll see you at some of the meetings.
Absolutely.